Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the Springfield trustees, and I want to welcome everyone here tonight. This is a pretty cool project. I mean, we got to get one of our gems of Springfield back up and running, and I believe this would be a start. You know, we got Mike here from Blue Green Algae. He's going to, answer all the questions that we have, and I'm looking forward to what you have to say, and see if we can move forward. So, now I'm going to introduce you to Mike.
Thanks. Hey, so I'm going to just introduce myself and what we've been talking about, and I'll kind of let you guys come up and ask questions. So, just a quick background. I went and looked at the lake really quick. We've been able to look at it on some satellite imagery and correlated the story that we heard. And actually, I flew into the airport here, right over there, and they asked what I was doing here, and I said, here, go look at the lake, and like immediately they kind of snapped, and they said, what are you going to do about it? So it's obviously no secret. That's why y'all are here. Blue Green is, it's technically it's an Israeli company. They started with some Israeli technology to basically solve algae blooms. It's very, very laser focused on blue green algae, cyanobacteria algae blooms, and they invented some ways to do it, to treat these water bodies in kind of holistically, using a type of product that a handful of products. The one I proposed for this particular lake is the same one we used in Chippewa. I was not with the company in 2019 when we did Chippewa, but I was brought in about a year and a half ago to kind of help stand up and bring this stuff at scale. So it's been tested, it's been used, and all indications of that we can bring this lake back so it doesn't have algae blooms. We can probably increase the water clarity as well. And I really just want to hear more about what your questions are, and I'm sure everyone's going to ask what we plan to do, so I'm happy to introduce that. Maybe then we'll start with that, and then also describe a little bit about what we did in Chippewa. Even though I wasn't here, we documented it pretty well. There's a handful of a bunch of documentation from the state of Ohio that I dug up to help correlate some of the facts of what the company put together. I think all companies are going to have company success stories and propaganda and YouTube videos, which is, I think, what we circulated to everybody before. Has everybody seen, or how many of y'all have seen the video about Chippewa? Okay. It's out on YouTube. Again, I wasn't with the company when we did that, but that video is part of what kind of sold me on joining this company. I'm from North Carolina. Well, I'm originally from Northwest Indiana, but I've been in North Carolina since like 9th grade. We have algae blooms down there too, but it's a very different type of water. I joined the company. I used to do government programs, and I've worked in the state of Ohio with the EPA. I've done some stuff with BMV and EPA and big enterprise government programs, and it was like the most boring work ever. And then I had an opportunity to come and join with water tech. So that's why I joined it. It was largely the Chippewa video. So with that in mind, what we did in Chippewa, I'll just paraphrase a lot of what's in the video. Y'all can go look at it if you'd like. All indications were that water body was pretty sick. The township had a great water body that had a lot of recreation on it. People liked it, and then it started to kind of a rapid decline. Again, I'm paraphrasing this. Anybody who has more information, I'm happy to listen, and you guys can fill in the gaps. But it looked like a pretty rough problem, and we talked to folks, and they told us that this lake used to be great, and it isn't great anymore. What can be done to bring it back? Our guys had just invented a type of floating time-release algicide. We actually have 3 different types right now. There's one type of algicide called copper sulfate. It's been used widely for, I think, since the 50s, and it is, the folks in Israel, they have big algae blooms in their water reservoirs because the water is very scarce there, and they were overdosing with copper, just overdosing it left and right, and that actually was causing a problem. So Blue Green invented a way to kind of float it and time release it and be able to achieve much longer lasting results, which with essentially a microdose level of the copper versus having to just dose and dose and dose and dose and dose. So when it's floating in time release, it more or less chases the algae. It creates an environmental condition where the algae kills itself. So we're not actually doing chemical combat with the cell membranes. We're putting floating copper sulfate on the top of the water. It tricks the algae into killing itself, or it's called programmed cell death, or regulated cell death. Y'all can go Google that. These are the words that I've been read about, and we've got a bunch of scientists in the U.S. who have helped us understand essentially what's happening at the biological level. So from all indications that I've seen, and I'd welcome anybody who wants to come up and forward some gaps for me, is that the results lasted. This particular graphic, I did not want to present any company data. That may be biased, so I went to Ohio EPA and we grabbed satellite imagery that was analyzed before and after treatment. So this is taken from the Copernicus 3 satellite, I believe, and it showcases kind of before the treatment and then the events leading after treatment as it was analyzed. And then I correlated that with also some news stories that showed long-lasting results. I would like to hear from anybody who knows more about it, about that particular project. With regards to Springfield, it's the same product. It's a floating time-release algaecide. We feel that one dose at the right time could offer long-lasting results and then keep a reserve amount of the product on hand. Put a more high-resolution satellite analysis on it so that we could see leading indicators so it doesn't bloom again. We'll see indicators of a bloom and we could go microdose it or surgically dose it ahead of any big movement. That's the scope of what we anticipate to do for Springfield. We also have another scenario that we think we can increase water clarity as well, which is a floating time-release alum product. Alum is, people have been using it forever. It's extremely safe, but there is trepidation about overdosing water with alum. Same with copper. We also have a hydrogen peroxide, which is typically what the market really likes as well, the hydrogen peroxide. But given the fact that your water is very similar to Chippewa, I figured to go with what was already used and effective there. So with that in mind, these are, again, just an anecdotal scenario that shows you before and after. Media stories I've shared with Ted indicate that the water remained clean. I believe that they did have to dose a little bit this year. It's a DIY scenario. Once you work with us, you don't need us to come up here. You don't need to spend a lot of money. We can arm you with the product and keep the satellites on it so that we are way ahead of anything that gets out of hand. So with that in mind, that's essentially what we proposed for you guys. Train the trainer scenario, come in here, do it with you. We'll bring a team, a science director, Jessica Frost, who's our PhD. She was in Florida. We bring her up here with me. We would be here dosing at the right time, and then we would leave you guys with kind of the knowledge of how to continue to do that. I don't think you'll have to dose much after that. I think that we would put the satellites on it. Every time you wanted to, you could go and see what the satellite shows in terms of hotspots. It is a much higher resolution satellite than this one. This was when it was available in 2019. Now we've got a 3-meter resolution satellite we can put on it. This is 300 meters. So with that in mind, that's kind of the opening statement, and I'd love to hear what questions you guys have. I believe that you wanted me to let other people come up and ask questions from here. Is that it?
Yeah, I'll move that so they can come up there. I have one question while it's on my mind.
Sure.
You said that Chippewa had a microdose this year. What was the indicator that tipped them off? Was that through you, or did they do
It
their
wasn't
own?
through us, no. They do routine testing, and they were armed with about 2 tons from, I wasn't with the company at that time, but there was about 2 tons of product left in the warehouse of copper sulfate. And I heard it through the news and the media, and I think I sent you a link where it said that there were indications that they were doing a proactive dose, was I think the words I used to try and get ahead of it. Part of my mission, I think, we're in Florida, Utah, all over the place. I'm trying to get back to Ohio right now. It's a little bit, I do not know that those are Chippewa. I won't. By the way, Ted, before we leave this slide, I said you wanted to call Manaway. Since I wasn't here with Chippewa, and I can't vouch for everything and how everything happened. I know what I've read, and I've seen the video, and I know what Ohio says about it, what the media said about it. I'll go ahead and share a firsthand account with a project I recently developed and did kind of firsthand on my own. And before I get to this, one of the things that's changed between 2019 and today is in 2019 it was an Israeli company and a bunch of scientists from Israel who came to Ohio to test the product in the United States and to get a showcase story. They did that through 2019 with Chippewa, and they did another handful in Florida. And then we reorganized the company US company now that's using the Israeli technology. So you'd be working with us in the US as opposed to scientists from Israel. I think that that's poignant because we're here, we'll stay here. And like I said, I'm based out of North Carolina, but I travel all the time. I think that's noteworthy so to know that when we stand side by side. This is one I did in September of this past year. This is Manaway Reservoir, about 525 acres. It's Brigham City. I'm happy to put Ted or various people in touch with the stakeholders of this particular project, just so you can talk to Ted or Jeremy about speak firsthand. 525 acre reservoir, scummy, gross. It's in Utah, and anybody who's visited Utah, it's absolutely beautiful state. This is has fishing, water skiing, recreation. It's gorgeous, but by about June or July of every year, it was toxic with microsystems, and you couldn't really swim in it. And if you look at the water, you can see it. There's the before and after imagery. That was from drones. They were the same. We tried to make sure we check off all the boxes. The exact same time of day, same angles. So everything about this imagery had to correlate with before and after scientifically. We also had third-party scientists validating this one, so it wasn't just blue-green scientists, but we had scientists from the state government in Utah DEQ, but also the university, and also third-party labs validating all these data points. The big component of this, which we're not going to get into for this one, for this particular project, but we sink, because the biomass stays intact, we're not lysine cell membranes, you typically don't see a spike in toxins or microsystems, instead you see biomass sink to the bottom. In this particular project, they measured about 13,000 tons of biomass that sank. And again, that wasn't our measurement, that was done through a third party. If you scroll down, the other thing that we noticed, again, because we're not lysing the membranes, this was theoretical until we measured it and looked at the lab results. And again, I'm not a scientist in the room, I just chartered the project with a lot of questions that said, hey, guys, we spend a lot of money just to look at everything possible. They found total phosphorus and total nitrogen had retained within the biomass and so to the bottom. I'm curious now to see, we have to go back here this year and see how much of this phosphorus and nitrogen stayed in the biomass or if they were re-released, but that wasn't the scope. We didn't come in here and say we're reducing nutrients, but it was a nice twofer, if you will. It was interesting for us to see that phosphorus and nitrogen got contained within the bellies of the cyanobacteria cells that did not place out. I can't promise that, but I think it's pretty interesting and it shows anecdotally that we're not lysing the membranes and feeding the guts of what's in the bellies of these cells. Scroll down a little bit more for me. These are, again, other third-party data points, is that biodiversity increased when we reset the cyanobacteria colony. Other green algae phytoplankton came in and started to kind of fill the niche, and is theoretical, but also being tested this year as we continue to look at this particular water body, is how much of that kind of reset the immunity of the water. So biodiversity, if cyanobacteria is no longer dominant, what is going to be in there that's going to consume the nutrients that are in there and can then outcompete the cyanobacteria. Basically, cyanobacteria was running amok. That's what all that green sludge is, and it was out of whack. So by resetting that, the resistant index increased substantially with other phytoplankton. And that was pretty quick results. And scroll down, I don't know if there's anything else that's pointing in this. That's just a graph of the resistant index that I was describing. Water clarity, this is pretty important, again, this is measured by our probes, by third-party probes, and by folks within DEQ. So this all correlates to increased water clarity pretty significantly in a relatively short period of time. Just to set one final expectation is it's not an algicide, it's a flash impact. You don't dose it. We dosed on September 25th. It came back on September 26th, and I was pretty nervous because it was still green. It was still a little ugly. September 27th, I was a little bit on the edge of my seat wondering if this was going to work or not. This is what the program cell death is doing. The word is biosignaling. Again, not being a scientist, I hear words that other scientists say and I grab onto them because they make sense. But biosignaling is that program cell death. It's a slower cascade where the bacteria does not want to exist in this environment anymore because because of the environmental condition that was put on it. So it starts at, in other words, autocatalytic cell death. If there's anybody in the room that knows more about this, I'm happy to take questions. But I'll tell you what I know is that the biosignaling starts a process over the course of a couple of days. And I have probe data that shows phycocyanin, chlorophyll A, all trending downward for 2 weeks, and it did not rebound at all. So when I say it's not a flash impact, it's not like pouring bleach in the water one day and then you come back and all the bacteria is gone. You're going to watch this cascade downward for about a week or two, and during that time, the other phytoplankton's coming in pretty quickly. We would be here as part of this process with you guys. We would set a probe in the water so that we would have water readings every 30 seconds. We would get water readings throughout the day, and we would have satellites aimed on it, and all these dashboards would be available for you, and we would use those to, in the event that we see a hotspot flare up, I'd call whoever you guys put me in touch with, and I'd say northwest corner of the lake, there's 3 acres over there. If we get to it now, we'll get in front of it. That's the scope of the proposal I put in Ted's hands. And with that, I was just kind of, other data points you guys can, thanks Ted. Go back up for me. Yeah, this is, so you can see the higher resolution from Ohio EPA's website, which has big blocks on it. Our resolution now goes into, hundreds or even thousands of pixels. So I can actually see water in much, much, much higher definition than we could in 2019. This is the technology we're going to bring to this project. So with that, I'm happy to take questions. I'll probably leave by no later than 5 o'clock, so happy to, go ahead.
I got a few questions.
Yeah, come on up.
Well, we just ask if you do have a question, come up to the mic so they can get it on the recording, that's all.
Actually, my name's Tim.
Tim, really
Glad to see you here. So I have a few questions. So from what I was told from Bob over at Chippewa, because you got you treated at one time, within 24 hours they knew it was doing its job. I did when I was in the Army. I was stationed in Fort Bliss, Texas. I also worked with Texas Fisheries and the Department of Natural Resources on my spare time. I had actually brought this up several times back in 2020 with different meetings with Lake Mark. Kind of got pushed in. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I want to know, is this going to be a waste of money if there is a line coming into the lake that everybody pretty much knows about? If it's constantly coming in, is that going to waste the money on what they put into? I mean, we're having next question. Let me start. When does that algae usually start blooming?
The algae's already, it's in, the colonies exist in the water from, again, without being the biologist, but working in the industry for a year and a half. The algae's already there. The colony is
Temperature-wise.
temperature.
When does it start to bloom?
It's different for every water body. The satellite analysis will tell us when it's going to bloom. And a couple of other customers that I've been able to work directly with, they found a sweet spot. These are municipal water supplies, so they have to be very proactive with it. They can't allow microcystins and toxins to actually feed into the plant. They found a sweet spot at 18 degrees Celsius. They will dose one time at 5 pounds per acre. That's a proactive dose, so they don't wait for it to hit bloom stage. 18 degrees, and this is in South Carolina and Georgia, so it might be different types of water.
So people that don't understand that, in Fahrenheit, what temperature is that?
Oh, I'd have to do the calculation. 18 degrees Celsius times 70.
70 degrees? Now, should we be having that same bloom at 39 degrees?
39 degrees. The colonies exists within the water.
Well, I mean, to where it's floating on the surface.
There are absolutely wintertime blooms that happen over the ground.
I'm so glad that you're saying this. I really do. I really appreciate this because it just confirms what I've been trying this since 2020, and it's been rough. So I thank everybody on council that brought this forward because this needs to be done. But I don't want to overshadow that, other entities have permits to put into the lake. And until we stop that, I think it's going to be a reoccurring all the time.
You have to, I'll speak to that for just 1 second, because I don't think that there's a magic wand solution. As much as I believe in the product that we have and the way we do it, it would be irresponsible to say, we're just going to use this and depend on it 100%. I think you have to have a little bit of attention, and a lot of attention to the external loading that's happening, which is what's coming into the lake. I will offer this, and this is written up scientifically in a very long report, about 100 pages long. The Lake Mineola in Florida, which is in a chain of lakes. Lake Minnehaha is upstream, Lake Mineola is downstream. So if you guys ever watched like ESPN3 back in the early 2000s, you saw those Ironman competitions and everything. Those happened on like Lake Mineola. It's a very recreational lake with people swimming in. They had to essentially shut those competitions down. And we got after Chippewa, we got an innovative tech grant through the state of Florida to try this new type of technology that we deployed. And it was a $1.7 million project, and it was a proactive dose. So in other words, I use like the term antibiotic dose, which is going to be like, hey, you've got an infection. And then there's vitamin dosing, which is like when I described 5 pounds per acre at 18 degrees Celsius. That's like giving it a vitamin, like an immunity shot. So in Lake Mineola, we had an innovative tech grant to do basically vitamin dosing. So it was it was during the winter time, over the course of several months. We just went and surgically dosed very, very small dosages, 5 to 7 pounds per acre, not acre foot, but just acre because it floats. Since we dosed in 2021, Lake Mineola has not bloomed again, and Lake Minnehaha upstream is blooming and sending contaminated water into the lake. Lake Mineola happens to have a resistant index and an immunity factor that seems to be favoring it. I can't tell you guys to depend on that. I'd still say look at your loading that's happening externally. It's water. It's an organism that changes with it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because
Sure.
I've been speaking on deaf ears, and it's glad to have somebody here that can confirm that what was already been said. It's just great to know. It's just.
It doesn't just happen in warm water. I mean, Norway, Sweden, Maine. I was up in Maine a couple weeks ago, and there's Lovejoy Pond is blooming in the water's probably 50 degrees. It's blooming that really bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, the, what is it, copper sulfate causes a lot of medical issues in people. How long does somebody have to stay out of the water before that dissipates?
They don't really. I mean, I would recommend they stay out of the water. It takes about, when I saw, and this particular water body in Manaway Reservoir, that was treated with sodium percarbonate, which is essentially hydrogen peroxide. When it lands in the water, the chemical reaction turns it into hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide turns into water and oxygen after a few hours of activation phase. But it's the exact same. The reason I brought that up is because it's the same coating. It's a nano coating, and I think that's what we're asking is how long does it take for that to dissolve. The nano coating on this one took about 12 hours for it to fully dissolve and see no remnants. Maybe a little bit longer than that, a little bit of coating left. The coating on the copper sulfate, again, it's the exact same coating on it, and this was done. Sodium carbonate takes a higher dose to do its job, and it's a more expensive product. But they say about 48 hours. I would say 12. I haven't heard that it's toxic to humans. I mean, obviously in high doses anything can be pretty toxic, but copper sulfate is used widely. I'm kind of surprised at how many people, vis-a-vis sodium percarbonate or hydrogen peroxide, I would think everybody would be banging my door down for hydrogen peroxide. That's, again, another reason why I entered the market is because it's a very nature-based solution and dissolves into nothing. But copper sulfate is heavily favored by applicators, people in the lake and pond industry. It might just be because they're used to it more. And my claim to fame on that is for every, typically copper sulfate you have to dose it per acre foot of water because it's heavier than the water, so it sinks pretty quickly. Because ours is buoyant and it floats, and it also time releases, the ions that sink down through the water have a much higher duration of time to do their job. So it's about 10% of the dose. So for every 10 pounds of copper sulfate, you would use traditional copper sulfate, which is, again, it's used everywhere. I'm very surprised, but it is. For every 10 pounds of copper sulfate you would use about 1 pound of Lake Arkaloo, which is what I've quoted you guys. I think it's worthy to say, why would if I believe so much in the sodium percarbonate, why would I propose copper sulfate for you guys? And I think that's a thing I came to speak to, is because it worked really well in Chippewa. It doesn't have lasting effects. It's widely used, and because your water is so analogous to it, it just makes sense to go with a proven entity. We can look at the sodium percarbonate for you guys. We haven't treated with sodium percarbonate in Ohio yet. I don't know how different your water is. So I want to stand in front of you and make promises and try to give you as much guarantee as I can give you on an organism like a lake. I would recommend we use what was proven already.
I was told, I haven't researched it enough to confirm, but I've been told that the use of copper sulfate has been outlawed in the state of Florida. Do you know if that's true, and if it is true, can you explain why? Just the peripheral research I've done indicated fish kills and good algae terminations and such. Can you elaborate on that, please?
From a like raise my hand and know the facts, I can't give you that, but I can tell you that I know copper sulfate is a distributor I work with, which is a reputable big name brand in the ag industry. They sold about $5 million worth of copper sulfate in the state of Florida last year. I don't know that from just because of what I do, I have to know distribution volumes. So to the context of, is it outlawed everywhere? I can't imagine it is, but then again, are there nuances into where it might not be used? You might have a point to that. I can say that in the state of Florida where I work, everything is sodium percarbonate down there. They're not buying, the government entities down there aren't buying sodium percarbonate from me, but I know that copper sulfate is widely used. It's used in canals and probably HOA ponds, golf courses use it like crazy, and they overdose with it because they're willing to bleach their water. We don't want to bleach any water. It's not what we're after. Yes, sir.
I actually have one. I do a lot of big tournaments. I'm still chasing this out here because, 5 fish, 30 pounds, largemouth. It's kind of unheard of unless you do a test. Is that going to do anything to affect them at all?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest fish I've caught out of here is 10 pounds. You know what I mean? So.
Well, I can answer. I can bridge both of your questions maybe with one anecdote. Again, the deviated factor from what I'm about to tell you is it was the sodium percarbonate, but in Lake Mineola. By the way, is anybody from Chippewa here? Anybody that noticed if Chippewa's fish and their, the aquatics of the animals rebounded or didn't rebound? Because I don't know the answer to that either, but I'd love to hear people who fish Chippewa tell us what happened or the long-term effects. What I can say is cyanobacteria, let's make this not about the product. Cyanobacteria has a detrimental impact to the organisms in the water, like wildlife. After Lake Mineola, and this is in a report that I can share with Ted or Jeremy, and they can distribute as they see fit. After the cyanobacteria colony was reset in Lake Mineola, largemouth bass population size, well, two things. The specimen size increased, this is in the report, and also the overall population numbers increased. And that wasn't the scope of the project, it was an and by the way, anecdote or a data point. I am working to get some grant money from different governments. I'm proposing that we actually start to study the relationship between cyanobacteria and the fish itself, because we do see populations rebound when you've taken care of cyanobacteria. In terms of the product itself, I haven't seen copper sulfate cause any fish kills. I have seen DO is a big concern when you treat with any sort of product because cyanobacteria is highly photosynthetic. And when you zap that out of the water, if you don't do it right and you don't have a team of people that are paying attention to dissolved oxygen, you do have risks. That's why I want our scientists here. It's safe. We haven't seen fish kills as a result of our product. I'm going to get in front of one scenario which made me very nervous. This project in Utah, again, was my first one. A lot of balls in the air when you do a big complex project like this. There's state permitting, there's the product, there's a lot of scientists that are coming from all over the world to measure things. We did get, there was a report of a fish kill. It wasn't